Hello. And before I begin my AAUW speech, I'd like to first say that I stutter when speaking. So if I seem like and I am in pain saying the word pairs of prickly pants, don't worry, I'm not in any pain. The American vote is losing its value, and we, ordinary Americans, are at the cause. Georgia has passed anti-voter laws that attack and absentee voting and criminalize voters that bring food and water and while waiting to vote. Florida has passed similar laws that tighten requirements for voting by mail, as well as who can transport those votes. This hurts Floridan racial and minorities. These laws are fundamentally unconstitutional and should be repealed, right? The odd thing is that both of these laws were passed in 2021, 2 years ago, and have yet to be repealed since then, even with the public eye shown upon them. Why? Well, let's look upon said a public eye. According to the textbook in the struggle for a democracy, the majority of Americans neither care nor understand modern politics. Many Americans don't have the time to properly do research, not because of any faults of their own, but because they have jobs to fulfill and families to raise. To add to this, a 2014 survey reveals that 76% of Americans believe that the federal government does not do the right thing most of the time. With this perspective of the government being convoluted and selfish, it is understandable why many Americans believe their vote holds no voice. So people simply don't care about these anti-voter laws. With this, the real question to ask is not how to protect and expand voting rights, but instead, how to change a national culture, to prompt national research and passion to fight for change. With this specific case of changing our culture and to give more value to the vote, there are two parts. One is research. The majority of Americans don't have the time to do historical or political research. And we need to find a way to normalize research or make people want to learn for intrinsic value. The second part is perspective. The majority of Americans believe that their vote holds no voice. So there needs to be a large-scale change in perspective. So Americans believe in the vote. Of course, this is just the top of the stairs. The stairs do little without steps. We could put this problem on the shoulders of the federal government, but that would be irresponsible, as the people ultimately are the foundation of the government. So what can ordinary Americans like us, schools, families, and organizations actually do to bring about this national change? The answer? It's a lot, actually. History has shown that national change comes from the youth. During the civil rights movements in the 1960s, it was predominantly American youth that fought for social change that helped lead to the Civil Rights Amendment. If modern life has no time for this research, we can help start this researching trend. School boards can establish a researching day once every few weeks in history classes, or create a new club in which students research current events and modern politics and share their findings with their classmates. These classes and clubs can also place more cultural significance on staying up to date and on current events. This leads to healthy habits of researching later in life. Of course, for people to actually use their knowledge, there has to be incentive into votes. There is actually an idea that can inspire this, and I have brought it up in this speech. It's the fact that the majority of Americans don't trust in the government. This is currently seen as a negative thing, but this distrust can be channeled into activism. If the majority of Americans don't trust in the government, then they can use their votes to make the government more trustworthy. Because, and after all, and the government will not change for us. Our vote has a voice that the government cannot ignore. Use it. That is all.